If there are questions, I'll be happy to take them.
Speak to maybe crystal ball a little bit about how the limits of the environment we're in right now might affect building and land development.
Sure. Yeah. And here's one for those of you who still are in the stock market. I hope no one is, but if you're still in that, Lehman Brothers is now starting to pull back on transactions in real estate. I actually have a fairly extensive commercial real estate portfolio. And I looked at every single one of our real estate assets about 2 years ago with these lemons in mind. And it turns out that there are places where you can be wise. For example, I'm a limited partner, fairly significant limited partner in one of the larger shopping centers in Washington, D.C., which happens to be located directly next to the Pentagon. And since the employer of last resort is the government, and the Pentagon, currently requesting a $700 billion budget this year, by the way, not including the Iraq War, the Pentagon is where people go to work who are going to be employed no matter what happens to the rest of us. So that particular shopping center, I felt was a very good long-term asset. But what I did do was helpful in getting the general partners who have been doing business for many years to do. We did a refinancing a few years ago, and we got some fixed money debt. And I would recommend that everybody who has anyone they know that's still on an adjustable rate mortgage to do the same. Because right now, mortgage rates, as you know, have not dropped significantly, despite the prime dropping. And they are going to be subjected to extraordinary rapid rises, I believe, in an inflationary cycle. So you want to be on fixed debt. But if you have a fixed debt and a low leverage, so in that particular shopping center, I think our leverage is less than 40%. So we have 60% equity. So our debt service is so low and our cash flow is so strong that we could sustain a 30% reduction of business and still be strongly in positive cash flow territory, which, by the way, is a good test I recommend to all of you. Any company you're interested in, see if they could withstand a 30% reduction of sales and that they would still be cash flow positive. Good rule of thumb. So what's going to happen, you're going to see commercial real estate in the United States is about to get a real whack. It's not going to up with home loans. You're going to see it in New York, by the way, is going to be getting a real wake-up call real soon. Commercial real estate in New York is going to have a significant readjustment. The impact alone of the drop in employment in the financial sector in New York, combined with the drop in total dollars and bonuses and salaries, is going to have a dramatic impact on New York. You're going to see a real significant impact in London, where the financial industry is even bigger, dominant factor in London than it is relative to our country in New York. You're going to see other places where, well, vacancy rates in commercial buildings. I own a number of commercial buildings, and what I've tried to do is, in each case, set them up so that they could withstand, with low leverage, significant downturn, long time, and dramatic downturn in both rents and vacancies. So it's a combination of factors. I'm involved in some hotels, and I've tried to isolate those to ones where I think that people whose currencies are stronger than ours, because about a year and a half ago, we told all of our readers in the econ forecast to get into euros, Canadian dollars, and Brazilian reals, and gold. Of course, gold was at 550 at that time. People thought it was high. They didn't want to do it. So some people took our advice and made a lot of money. And in the hotel cycle, I'm very nervous about hotels that aren't going to be attractive to non-American audiences. With the exception, there are some in Hawaii I like, because Hawaii will be the one place that Americans can afford to go because it's the same currency. Not a good reason, but a reason. And Europeans like Hawaii, but it's a little too far to come to. Asians love Hawaii. Okay, other questions? Yes, sir. The question is, and I'm sorry I didn't repeat the first one. The question is, what do I think is the most effective communication style from a management point of view? Okay, now this is something you're not going to hear very often in a business school, but I sincerely mean it. Every communication ought to be an expression of love. Okay, if you really care about the other, which is what love is, you will try to speak in the language of the learner, if it's a subordinate or someone that you're supposed to be instructing. You'll try to speak at the level of awareness of the person listening. You'll try to speak at a level that can connect with them so that they can actually come to some conclusion. The minute you get into your ego, which is the denial of love, what happens is you block effective communication. So the most effective communications really are born from a belief that you really need to be in love with everybody, and it will reflect on you amazingly. It also is very good for your friends, and it confounds your enemies. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, and just two comments I want to make with that. First of all, when I made a reference to the 10th century culture, I wasn't referring to indigenous cultures. We'll come back to that in a second. I was referring to a specific 10th century culture. I was thinking of the Taliban, okay, because I referenced Sharia, which is the law, which is basically fundamentalist Muslim law. It can be also applied as a modern state, what they do in Egypt, but historically it was adopted in the 10th century. I was talking about burqas, et cetera. So I really did not mean to impugn indigenous cultures. In fact, I wrote a series of articles on corporate governance, and I had some other members of the Academy join me in writing some pieces that were quite good. And if you write the Academy, they'll send you electronic copies of them. And in it, I said the optimum form for organization of a corporate board of directors would be to basically copy what's used in tribal, indigenous American tribal culture, i.e. a board of directors should see itself as tribal elders. And so I have a long background in respect for indigenous cultures. So I really wouldn't want you to think that I don't respect it, because I do, because the wisdom of indigenous cultures is one of the things we're losing by accident. The other thing about your comment about Ecuador, which, as you know, has just gone through a terrible problem, right? I mean, almost the brink of war. And I agree with you. I think Ecuador is making great strides right now. I'm delighted with what's going on in Ecuador, because I think there's really a first time in quite a long time where the president of the country is really trying to do something for the people. I would comment that in Brazil, which indirectly supports Ecuador, although, as you know, it's more supported by Venezuela. But in Brazil, President Lula da Silva, he is basically comes from the people. He was a socialist as a young man. And what he did, which was so brilliant, and why the Brazilian miracle is working, is he decided to adopt trickle-up economics. As a result, there's a housing boom in Brazil. There's a sustainable economy in Brazil. I mean, it's just an amazing miracle when you take care of the people first. And if you don't, here's a statistic you all should know. In the year 2000, the median income in the United States was about $49,450. 6 years later, in 2006, the median income was $48,220, meaning the average American household went backwards, which is proof positive that the rich got richer and the poor got richer in America. And the American dream you alluded to, the American dream is really about building a society with a strong middle class. And we've decimated that middle class. And by the way, to put those statistics in context, at the same time when the median income was dropping, the cost of food was going up, the cost of shelter was going up, the cost of college education was going up, and the cost of medicine was getting ridiculous. So not only was the income not keeping pace, it was actually, it took more income to survive. So the American dream has been getting hurt pretty bad for a number of years now. And I'm really glad you spoke, because I travel around the world a lot. And as a result, I'm really appreciative of how the rest of the world looks at the United States. And I'm trying to always learn from what other cultures have that will benefit us. Because it turns out there's a lot to be learned. And I think we sort of forgot that at some point. We got a little big on ourselves. So thank you for bringing up those points. Yes, sir. Great, be happy to tell you. First comment, I forgot to mention, anybody who wants to go to get a free copy of our newsletter, comes out every 2 weeks, it's called Currents of Commerce. Go to worldbusiness.org, sign up for it. You'll love it, and you'll impress your professors here, I'm sure, because we've got lots of good little nuggets in it. Very quickly, on nuclear energy, it is the most insane, stupid technology the world's ever devised. It is the worst. By the way, my last book before this one, 10 years ago, was published by Simon & Schuster. It's a college textbook on nuclear energy called Profiles in Power. And as I say in the book, in Chapter 5, which is an update of that book, nuclear energy, a mistake in search of a mission. I would love to talk about it at length if anybody wants to hear about it. It makes no economic sense. It's totally uneconomic. And in its normal operation, off gases strontium-90, which is a known carcinogen, which collects in the breast tissue of women and actually is worse even for children. And there's absolutely documented evidence now. The distance you live from a nuclear power plant determines your rate of cancer. It is unbelievably crazy that we would do that if we're intelligent human beings. Thank you.
We'll take a few more questions, and you can for now. Let's join in thanking him for his time. Thank you, Ronaldo.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thank you.